Big fight at heavyweight, and I can't stress big enough. We have the Prince of War, Greg Hardy, on the left-hand side, taking on the crochet boss, Maurice Greene, who's not afraid to crochet, going Instagram Live to answer some fan questions. Now, Matt, as far as this fight's concerned, in the overall scheme of the heavyweight division, Greg Hardy, since he became a pro just a couple of years ago, has faced an absurd level of talent. You look at it from the start. I mean, we're talking the Austin Lanes of the world. I mean, it's two former pro football players taking on each other in Contender Series. And then he gets the incremental steps up, and then he's fighting Alexander Volkov on short notice and losing tremendously, even though he had some pockets of success in that fight, had a broken hand, had Dean Thomas in his corner, all kinds of crazy stuff. For Greg Hardy, the journey into MMA has been a strange one. It's just been a weird bucket of muscles, as Craig would say. In this fight, it's tough to gauge what you're going to get because for Greg Hardy, look at his last fight against Yorgan De Castro. A fight that De Castro looked like he was going to win in the first round. And then after that, Greg Hardy just kind of cruised behind a jab and won the fight by decision. And that's the thing with Greg Hardy. When he gets in trouble, what does he do? He just circles and throws a jab. And that's what he does. That's Greg Hardy. Remember those impressive knockouts that you got a couple of years ago? You're not really getting that wild style anymore. And maybe that's just the evolution of a martial artist. The guy only has 9 pro fights, and one of them was a no contest to Alan Crowder where he knocked him out with an illegal knee. On a huge card, I might add. For Maurice Greene, again, consistently inconsistent. This is a guy that, down with LFA, looked like an absolute world beater. And then he comes into the UFC, avenges a fight against Jeff Hughes, beats Junior Albini by knockout, loses to Sergey Pavlovich. Well, that's going to happen. That guy's built like a brick shithouse. Loses to Alexei Oleinik in a fight that was absolutely terrible. And then his last fight out, one of the worst fights I've ever seen.
Pull off one of the greatest submissions you've ever seen.
Was pretty cool. He fought Dadbod Jean Vellante, mopped the floor with him. So for Maurice Greene, getting finishes, racking up the wins. For Greg Hardy again, it's been an odd journey so far. This is a tough fight to try and predict. It honestly is because you have two guys that are, and to use a Fight Night Picks term, consistently inconsistent.
This fight really comes down to who gets tired first. And let's be honest, it's probably going to be the viewer because Greg Hardy and Maurice Greene aren't known as two of the more exciting heavyweights in the division. Maurice Greene, we can say he mopped the floor of Jean Vellante, not remembering that fight all that well. Jean Vellante dropped Maurice Greene and they both got really tired really quick. And Maurice Greene made him submit. And that was one of the weirdest submissions you'll ever see.
Kind of cool.
It was... But it wasn't cool because it's like, oh, wow, he pulled off something using this like crazy level of technique. It was like, wow, Jean Vellante really tapped due to that. Maurice Greene, not known for a crazy submission ability. He does have the better submission game out of these two, I would say.
Number of them on his record.
Exactly. But it's not like Maurice Greene's going to go out there and really fish for a rear naked choke. I do think we are going to see a more grappling-centric game plan for Maurice Greene in this because Greg Hardy... Again, there's still so many question marks. Most of his really MMA career has taken place in the UFC, and there's so many strange performances because you look at what a guy like Alexander Volkov is able to do to other people, and you think, well, Greg Hardy made a pretty good account of himself in that fight. And then you look at his other performances, even in the wins, like the Juan Adams win. Juan Adams shoots in for a quick takedown, gets finished immediately with hammer fist. In most of Greg Hardy's other fights, cardio's been an issue for him. It is weird because when he does get tired, he kind of goes into this cardio-efficient mode like you had mentioned in the Yorgan De Castro fight where he just kind of gets on his bike and pumps the jab a lot. It's hard to be critical of his skills because he is new to the sport. And then just last thing, I just don't think Greg Hardy's an overly entertaining MMA fighter. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. It's not like Greg Hardy, when he shows up, it's like, wow, this is must-see TV. I understand he's a big name.
No. The UFC will lead you to believe that
exactly. But when you just look at him, I'm not, harping on his skills as much as I just don't think he's a guy who's the most exciting fighter in the world. I think he's a guy who has low output, has decent power if he can catch you. Of course, he's a phenomenal athlete. There's no way to deny that. But when I look at his MMA skill set, I like how they're building him. They're doing a much better job with him than they are with Alexander Hernandez, like I had mentioned in a previous video. But I don't really know where the ceiling for Greg Hardy is. That's really what I come back to every time I break down one of his fights.
And I need to interject, and the only reason I talked about it, the Ben Sassoli fight's the no contest. The Crowder was a DQ loss, so there is that. But that no contest against Ben Sassoli, that's Puffergate. And in that fight, it was the same thing. Well, I'm getting tired. What am I going to do? Pump that jab. Work that jab. And can I take this puffer? Well, I'm going to do it. So for Greg Hardy, this fight's going to be marketed. It's a marquee heavyweight matchup. Do I expect a finish? Both guys are susceptible to losing. And I mean, I say that even though Greg Hardy has a 3-to-1 win ratio. But in this fight, it is tough to tell what you're going to get because you have Maurice Green that dedicated himself to MMA, making the move to Jackson Wink, training with some of the best in the world. He's one of the longer fighters that you're going to find in this division. 2 inches of reach in his advantage or in his corner, 2 inches of height as well. Older fighter, more experienced fighter. That doesn't play out so with the odds. If we have a look at them, Greg Hardy, a fairly decent favorite, open to -205. The line dropped quick. He's a -308 on best fight odds. For Maurice Green, open to +175, now to +242. If we have a look at the total votes on Tapology, 827, 82% going Hardy, 75% saying he's going to win by knockout. I find all of that quite ridiculous.
Okay, I do think this is one of the more finishable fights for Greg Hardy, just because Maurice Green doesn't deal with pressure all that well. He is a really tall guy, and if you do force him backwards up against the cage, it forces him to have a really tall posture, and he is susceptible to a big shot.
Like Stefan Struve when he fought Tai Tuivasa, or when he fought Roy Nelson, or any of his fights.
Really anybody, but Maurice Green, it's wild to see how the narrative shifted on his career in one fight, because after the Jean Vellante fight, it was really looking like he was going to fight Tanner Boser, another guy in the heavyweight division who's really making his way up. He's doing great things right now. He's looking like he's going to be in the top 15 any day now. And now Maurice Green's fighting Greg Hardy. So it's wild to see. He could have fought a really big up-and-comer who, like, technically looks really good, but now he's fighting a guy with a big name, and I would say skill-wise probably isn't on the same level. But Maurice Green, if he is able to get Greg Hardy down, I do think he will have success. I just don't think he's going to be able to get the takedown. I think Greg Hardy, his takedown defense is going to be good enough to where it's going to stay on the feet. He's going to be able to land some of those jabs, work Maurice Green up against the cage. This is not going to be an entertaining fight, I don't believe, unless there is a quick finish in the first round. But I think Greg Hardy by decision is probably the safest bet, not by submission.
It's such a tough one. Like this is a pass if I've ever seen one. Really, I mean, at 300 to 1, like. At -300, for the odds to be there, you have to be so certain that that fighter is going to get the win. To even toss that in as a parlay or anything, do you have that much confidence that Greg Hardy's going to win? Now, I know there's going to be a commenter down there, and you're going to go hard as a mother and say, yeah, Greg Hardy's going to win, impressive knockout, and if it happens, you look like a genius. You're throwing darts at a board. How confident do you feel in that one? So for me, with Greg Hardy, like you said, in his more, I want to say technical fights, but where we've seen him kind of grow as a fighter, he's employed the jab. Maybe he throws a bit of a kick. He tried that. It worked a little bit against Jorgen Castro. He won the fight. You're fighting a guy, Maurice Green, that again, he's sneaky. He has submission abilities. Can he get the fight to the ground? Well, if Greg Hardy pressures, I don't believe so. Is Greg Hardy's cardio great? I wouldn't hang my hat on it. He needed a puffer that time, and if that's the case, especially traveling all the way across the world, weird sleep schedule, I think that's definitely going to negatively affect him. Am I confident in picking him? Not at all, but I'm more confident in picking Greg Hardy than I am with Maurice Green. And this is one of those fights that it's almost a throwaway, and if it's an impressive performance, probably going to be on the Greg Hardy side. So with a lot of reluctance, I'm going with Greg Hardy, Matt.
It's never a great sign when you have to pick the guy who you can envision losing less. And that's just how I see Greg Hardy in this matchup.
Oh boy, it's a tough one, Matt. We're both going with Greg Hardy. Maurice Green, surprise us. Surprise everyone out there. That would be the cat's behind, but we have an interesting card. I mean, Bryce Mitchell taking on Touchy-Feely in the co-main event. In the main event, Anderson Silva, the retirement fight. The Cowboy rides away, taking on a really tough out in Uriah Hall. Matt, really looking forward to it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, and as we always say, let's get into it.